Okay, well, my name is Maya DeLeon. I'm 15 years old. Today's date is April 18th, 2008. We are in Sacramento, California, and I'm going to be interviewing my grandmother.
And my name is Charlotte Holder. I'm 84 years old. Today's date is April 18th, 2008. We're located in Sacramento, California, and I'm going to talk to my granddaughter, Maya.
Okay, well, I guess kind of like what we were saying in the car about how we wanted to maybe talk about memories or something. What is your favorite memory of me?
Well,
Or
I have 15 years of them every year, every day. As you fascinate me more. I remember when you were born. I took care of you a lot when you were a baby. We have traveled together so many times. Remember, just the two of us went to Ghana by ourselves,
oh,
and
I
it
remember
took
that.
about 24 hours, and we were so tired. Another time we went to Belize by ourselves, just you and me. And remember in the Atlanta airport, you fell asleep on the floor.
Oh yeah,
They
yeah.
gave us some blankets, and that was just you and me, because each time we were going to go meet your mother, and let's see, some other times just the two of us. Oh, well, off the top of my head, I can't remember when it was just the two of us, but we've gone so many places. We went to Cuba together. We've gone to Spain and
France.
England and France. Remember, we went to the Eiffel Tower 3 times,
Yeah.
and we had dinner there. I remember we went to Florida so many times, and to Disney World and to Epcot. I don't know if you remember those so well, but we did, and we've been to Disneyland and down in Los Angeles. We've done so many things. We've gone to Sandpoint, Idaho. We just went to Mexico together at your uncle's house,
Mhm.
and we had a great time there. You were trying to get a tan, even though it was cold. You were laying out there anyway. You've reached the
Yeah.
age. But one of the main things I remember about you was your quinceañera that your mother put on for you on your 15th birthday, and
Mhm.
and it turned out just beautifully. It was such a big job. It was such an undertaking, and it just turned out wonderfully. I was so proud.
Yeah.
So.
I was thinking that you were gonna say something about the bumblebee thing.
Oh, yes. Well, that was another time I picked you up at school, and you were walking towards me with all your books, and all of a sudden a bumblebee about landed on you. You dropped everything right there and ran to me.
Yeah, I remember I was scared because I had, of course, that day I had a yellow jacket, a yellow backpack, probably yellow shoes, and I just remember seeing this bee, and I just threw everything on the
You
ground. I
did.
just
You
started
did.
running, and then I made you go and get my
Yes,
stuff.
because you wouldn't go back and get them. I remember that very, very well.
Yeah, that was.
I know it. So you never did like bees.
I still don't.
Well, I can understand that. Although I don't remember that you've ever been bitten. Have you?
Or stung. I
Or
was
s-
one time in 8th grade, and it was on the bottom of my foot while I was playing soccer, and
oh.
I was kind of just like, "Oh, I think I was stung," but I still don't like them
Were
either.
you playing with your bare feet? Oh,
Yeah,
well, you see, you're not supposed to do that.
I guess. Yeah. Well, if you could hold on to one memory from your life for eternity, what would that be?
Oh my goodness sakes. At my age, I've had so many different things happen to me. I remember growing up, I had 3 sisters, and I had a baby brother that died, and it was a depression, and we were very, very poor. And but we got through all that. And then I remember World War II, and that was quite an experience. And I met your grandfather, and we got married in Minnesota. We lived in El Paso, and he finally, um, and then he went over to Germany. He finally
Wait,
was.
is this my
This
real
is your
grandpa?
real
Oh,
grandfather, the one that died when your mother was only about 5 or 6 years old.
oh,
And then, of course, you had the other grandfather that I married,
yeah,
and he was like your real. He seemed like your real one to you, I
yeah.
know. And then I remember those experiences, and then moving to Sacramento, and with all my 4 children, and
Mhm.
uh, and then living in Los Angeles, and then moving back to Sacramento, and and then of course getting Andre, your cousin, and then when you were born. So those were all very special things to me.
Yeah. That's good. Um, are there any words of wisdom you'd like to pass along to me?
Well, one is try to take life kind of slow. Um, don't panic along the way, I think, because that's something I'm trying to learn now, finally, at my age, and I never learned
Mhm.
it before.
You've always been just
You think?
moving. Yeah.
I don't know. I've always been in a hurry. I've always been in a hurry. I've had so much to do and so many things to straighten out. But now all of a sudden, sure, I still have things to straighten out, but I don't want to panic about them anymore. I want to go slow, just like having your aunt move back home again. I don't want to panic about it this time.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to be calm. That's the only word of wisdom I can think of right now, honey. You just be a good girl, which you are.
Yeah. Uh, what are your hopes and dreams for the future, for what the future holds for me?
For you, oh,
Mhm.
honey, I just hope that you'll finish high school with honors, or at least the best way you can, and go on to college, and that you get a good job, and that you meet a real nice guy, and that you have a happy marriage. And I
Yeah.
just want the best for you, honey, always. I hope you continue to travel. I know you will, because you've got the bug now.
I know.
I,
I'm even going to London this summer again.
I know you are.
I'm excited.
And just be good to your mother always, because she sure is good to you. I
Hmm.
know you will, honey.
Yeah. Um, how would you like to be remembered?
Well, that I was always there, that Grandma was always there trying to help. Okay?
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, 'cause you always would be picking me up from like school all the time.
Yeah, I try
Mhm.
to always be there for everybody if they need me, you
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
And it seems like people always do. So,
I know. Um, is there something about me that you've always wanted to know but have never asked?
something about you.
Mhm.
Well, I pretty well know you, honey. I do know one thing. You are kind of quiet. You don't tell your innermost thoughts, uh, particularly. You never say anything bad about anybody. So I, and that's good, of course.
Mhm.
But you don't say anything that's bad about anybody. You don't tell me anything that's happening to you that's bad either. If you're having a hard time, you never tell me. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's the way you are. So I'm not going to try to change you because it's just the way you are. And but if you ever needed me, or you had a real problem and you wanted to talk to somebody about it, I hope you'll tell me, honey, because I would sure try to help, honey. That's
Yeah.
about all I can say about that one.
Yeah. Do you have any favorite stories about your kids?
About my let's see. It would be nice if I could think of something about your mother off the top of my head.
I
Um,
can think of some.
you can.
Yeah. I remember when mom was telling me about how Uncle Jerry and
Oh, yes. I remember one time she was riding in the car with your Uncle Chuck,
oh yeah.
and he just gotten his driver's license, and I think she was about, let's see, about 6 or 7 or 8 years old. She wasn't too, maybe 9, I'm not sure. He told her that she was sitting in the front seat with him, and he told her he was having a heart attack, and that she had to start driving.
Oh
And so
yeah.
she jumped in the back seat.
She told me she was so scared. She thought that he was gonna.
Yeah, he said he was having a heart attack. I tell you, she had those two brothers that teased
Oh my
her. Oh
gosh,
my
I
gosh, how
know.
they teased her. And
I feel bad for her sometimes.
I know she survived it, but
Yeah.
They had her crying a lot of times. I remember
Really?
that, yeah.
What'd she usually cry about?
Well, because they teased her so much. They'd lock her in the closet and she couldn't get out. And they'd tell her she couldn't breathe.
That she couldn't breathe.
They'd tell her things like that. And she believed them, of course.
Were you usually there when things
No,
happened?
usually I wasn't. No, if I was there, they wouldn't have been doing that. No.
Did mom tell you or did they tell
Well,
you?
they'd all laugh about it later, sooner or later.
That's funny.
Yeah.
One of my favorite ones is when they wanted to teach mom how to swim.
Oh, yeah.
So then they picked up her by her arms and her legs, and then they started swinging her,
Yes,
and they threw her in the
threw her in
pool.
the water and she started swimming. I remember that. I had a fit when I found out about it later, but I didn't know they were doing it. They did lots of things to your
So
mother.
you could pay them, right?
Yeah, I think I had told them that whoever would teach her would get $5. And so I don't know which one got the 5. I don't think either one did under the circumstances.
I know, probably. And then, yeah, I remember this was like a couple years ago, I think, at Easter, and this actually was probably a long time ago because this was when Uncle Jerry was still like here with us, and I remember I was really young, but I just remember this, and then they were pretending that they were gonna throw me in the pool like they did with mom, and they were like gonna swing me, but I was really scared and I started screaming. It's kind of funny. I forgot about that.
Yeah, we've had some very nice family things. You've always had Christmas at my house.
Yeah, and
remember, honey?
Easter,
And Thanksgiving too. But lately, now that Grandpa has died, things are changing. Things are never going to be quite like they were before. But and you're growing up, but it's still going to be good, honey. Whatever it is, it's going to be good.
Yeah.
We'll still take vacations together.
Yeah.
I've loved all of that. Last year we went to Hawaii and Guatemala.
Oh my gosh.
Remember, honey?
Yes, that was so fun. I want to go back there.
I'm sure you do. You want to go everywhere. You're like me. You have the bug.
I know. Well,
How did you meet your first husband?
I met my first husband. I met my first husband in World War II, and I was working in a giant orange juice stand, and the whole bunch of trucks full of soldiers stopped by to get the orange juices, and I met your grandfather, and I barely met him, and he gave me a matchbox with his name and address on it, and asked me to please write to him. And I did. We wrote to each other for 4 years. He ended up going to Kodiak, Alaska.
oh,
And
wow.
then when he got back, he ended up in El Paso, Texas. And I was working in San Francisco. And I think I was 21 years old then. And so I got on a train because, of course, you couldn't get on a plane in those days. And everything was rationed. Things were like you can't imagine in those days. And I went to El Paso, and then we got on a train and went to Winona, Minnesota, and to where his father was. And we got married there and went back to El Paso. And
After 4 years.
yeah. And it's really quite a storybook romance.
That's, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And
cute.
we were married for about 16 years before he died. And I had the 4 children, and it was wonderful. And then, of course, after he died, later I met Grandpa.
How'd you meet him?
Well, because some neighbors thought I should meet somebody, so they arranged for me to meet him, and they took me down to the where the yacht club was, and he had a boat down there, and we went boating, and he didn't know I was coming, and I didn't know we were going to meet him, and we hit it off, and we went together quite a while, and then we got married.
What did you think when you first saw him?
When I first met him, I thought, what a cheerful guy. He was so happy. He was just always cheerful.
Yeah.
And he always was.
He still was.
Always was cheerful. Never complained about a thing in his whole life. He was just the nicest person. Just what I needed because had been so sad. So it was just, that was another storybook part of my life. I guess I've been blessed.
Yeah.
That's one way to put it, huh? But now I'm alone again, but not really because I have you. and I have your mommy, and your aunt and uncle too. So I'm pretty lucky.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get a little bit lonesome though right now, but I'm learning to find things to do.
Because like the Tai Chi.
Yes, doing Tai Chi and exercises every morning keep me young.
What time do you wake up every morning?
I wake up about 5:30.
5:30?
5:30, and I go out and get the paper and fix some coffee, and I take it back to bed with me, and I work the 2 crossword puzzles, and pretty soon it's time to get ready, and I go over to the Tai Chi. It starts at 7:15.
Oh, was that lady that I met today? Was she?
Where she does the Tai Chi. She's not the leader, but she was one of the ladies that goes.
Oh.
And so first we do the couple of Tai Chi movements, and then we do some exercises, and then we do some more strenuous exercises with another group, and then there's another group, and we do some more Tai Chi. And I'm trying to learn. I'm not very good at it yet because it's very difficult. You have to get your hands going and your feet going, and I'm not too good at it, but it's really fun. I like it. It's very nice. So I'm glad I found that to do. So if I get home about 9:15, and if I don't do anything else all day, I feel like I've done something worthwhile, which is good.
Yeah.
But usually, lots of times, I get a little phone call from a little girl at school needing a ride.
Usually around 3.
Yeah, around 3 o'clock. So that's good. So that's fun. I like that.
Yeah. And then you always say, "Oh, I'm on my way," or "I'll
Yep.
come."
And it only takes me about 5 minutes to get there.
Yeah.
So it works out real well. Yeah.
Well, do you is there...
What was it like? So, how long were you raising your kids? So you had 4 kids.
Well, let's see. I had 4 children. They were ages about 14, 12, 10, and maybe 4 when my husband died. And so there I was, left alone with the 4 children. I was working for the Geological Survey. Then, no. I was working for the Sacramento City Schools. I was a secretary to one of the superintendents. And then my husband died. And then I met Craig, and then pretty soon we got transferred to Los Angeles. So that's how come your mother lived in Los Angeles.
Oh.
And she went to North Hollywood High School and graduated there. Then Grandpa and I came back to Sacramento, to the same neighborhood, and I'm glad we came back. It's nice living in Sacramento. I love it.
It is nice.
It's a nice town.
Yeah.
Can you talk about being a mother?
Oh, I love being a mother. I'm probably a very good one, but
No.
my children are very, very special. I thought I had the most wonderful children in the world. And of course, there's been a lot of sad things happening, like your aunt has multiple sclerosis and can't walk anymore, and that's been a sad thing. And your Uncle Jerry died, and that was very, very sad. And your mother, I don't know what I'd do without your mother, honey, and you, because you always invite me on your vacations, and we go places together. And like this morning, I got to go to your concert.
Oh, yeah.
And those things mean so much to me, So it's wonderful. So I don't know what I'd do without my children.
What was it like to give birth for the first time?
Oh, to give birth for the first time. My husband, Francis, was born September 19th, about 1:45 in the morning. Her father got discharged from the Army on September 18th. He had just barely gotten home, and Francis was 5 weeks early, and I think I was just so excited. The next thing we knew we were driving to the hospital, and I had Francis, and it was very, very scary. In those days, nobody told you what to expect. They didn't have birthing lessons like they do now.
Oh.
Everything was left kind of secret in those days. You know, everything is out in the open now, but not in those days. So I didn't know what to expect. And Frances was very tiny. She only weighed 5 pounds.
Really?
And yeah, and because she was, 5 weeks early. And I think I stayed in the hospital about 5 days or something like that. But so then when I had Chuck, I thought it was going to be another ordeal like that, but it wasn't. It was a very simple thing. And having your mother, by that time, of course, by your mother, which was my fourth one, I knew what to expect. And it worked out fine. I wanted your mother to be a girl because I had one girl and then 2 boys, and of course I wanted another girl. And so I was lucky enough to have had one. And I'm sure glad I had her.
Yeah.
What kinds of stories come to mind when you think of Maya's mother?
Oh, Maya's mother. She was such a good little girl. Of course, when she was about 4, I think it was when her father died. And I was taking her, I worked for the city schools. I would take her every day over to Mary Hill Nursery School.
Oh, she went to Mary Hill too?
There was a Mary Hill on 21st Street. And I would take her there every day. And she was just never any trouble. She was no trouble. But see, her sister was 10 years older and had, I guess she was in junior high school or maybe just before high school. I was so busy with the activities of the older kids that your mother just came along. She was never any problem, but I mean, I was busy taking the other kids to whatever it was that they had to do, and your mother would always ride along. And when I met your grandpa Craig, we would go boating in his boat, and the other kids wouldn't want to go, but your mother did because she was little. So we always took her along and just made sure she had a coloring book and some colors, and she'd just color all day.
Really?
I kept her. She was never a trouble. Your mother was never a trouble when she was little. So that made it nice. Made it real good.
Is her personality like the same as it was before? When she was
Your
younger?
mother's my personality, or your mother's?
Her personality.
Hers. I never thought of her as even having a personality when she was little because she was never any trouble. She was never demanding. She never had crying fits. She never had tantrums. She never begged for anything. She was just when I think of it, she was wonderful. How could I have been so lucky? I mean, really, honey, that's the truth. That's the way your mother was. I think she knew that we were having hard times, and because it was hard being alone with the 4 kids. I was working. I was taking the kids everywhere. I don't really know how I did it now, but I did. So we got through it. So your mother was great. You're lucky to have her, honey. And now your mother is so wonderful. There she is getting her PhD now and trying to, so busy at school and so busy at your school. So, and making sure that you do all the right things. You're pretty lucky, honey. You know that.
Yeah.
Who do you think shaped you growing up the most?
When I grew up, I had 3 sisters, and my mother, it was the Depression time. Things were hard. My mother, her way she coped with us was to send us all outside to play because we were just too much for her. We were always fighting and everything. And because we were poor, I made up my mind that that my children would never have to go through the things like I did, and they haven't. I just made sure of that. And I wasn't able to go to college because there was no money for college, but I always worked hard, and I've worked always since I can't remember when I started working. I was about 12 years old. Remember when we went to Winners? Well, you remember we saw all the fruit trees, all the apricot trees?
Yeah.
When I was 12 years old, I went a couple of summers with some neighbors, and we would go and cut fruit. And
so you worked over
in Winners, and we would sleep in tents. And I did that a couple of summers, and maybe I'd only earn about $5 or $10, but and I'd always bring it home and give it to my parents because we were very, very poor. Nobody in your generation really knows about how things were in those days. But I think that did shape me a lot because I have learned to cope with a lot of things, and I've just learned to manage. I think that's one way.
Do you think, can you talk a little bit about your parents?
My parents were wonderful. My mother was from Maryland, and she grew up on a farm. She was the oldest girl. She was a marvelous cook, and my father was in World War One. And when my dad was discharged from World War One, he came to his stay with his sister, and his sister and her husband had bought the farm next to my mother's. And I guess he met my mother, and I guess they fell in love, and I guess they went to Philadelphia and got married, and then Daddy got a job with the railroad, and they lived in boxcars, and they were in Idaho, and that's where Aunt Jerry was born, was in Idaho. Well, then the Depression was really bad, so the railroad was laying off all of everybody. So Daddy moved to somehow or other. We ended up in Portland, Oregon, and he got a job in a hospital in the engine part, or the what do you call that anyway, where they ran all the machines. I can't think of what you call that, but you know what I mean. And that's where I was born, and that's where Aunt Pat was born. Well, then he lost that job because people were losing jobs all the time, and so there he was with 3 children, and so they end up in Sacramento, and then eventually he ended up working in Davis at the Davis High School, and that's where Aunt Beverly was born, and then my baby brother who died, and so Mom and Daddy always lived in Davis then, and I grew up in Davis and graduated from high school in Davis.
Davis High School?
Davis High School. Graduated
The same one that's still up now?
Well, Davis High School has moved to a different location now than where it was when I was going to school there. But I graduated in 1941. And there were about 40 kids in my graduating class, and about 20 of us started kindergarten together. That's how much we didn't move in those days.
Wow.
I know.
That kind of sounds like for me, about how like me and my friends.
Exactly.
We all grew up together, and like
Yes.
we're still, I don't know. I know that some of my friends, Anna, she said that she wants to go over to Kennedy now too. Like everyone, she said that she wants to be back with all of us again, and some other people. Like our group, we were really tight, and we just always were together.
And already you're nostalgic. You don't want the good days to end.
Yeah.
I know. So, but then, of course, it was World War II. Right after I graduated from high school, World War II started. So some people went into the service, and I started working. I was, first of all, I went to Sacramento. Well, they call it junior college, only now it's Sacramento City College. I went there for a while, and then I got a job working for the Department of Motor Vehicles, and then eventually I moved to San Francisco, and I worked for Standard Oil Company there.
And
I lived at my girlfriend's aunt's house, and then, like I said, your grandfather ended up in El Paso, so we got married. I guess that's the story of my life. You know everything now.
I know.
What do you think, how would you have described yourself as a young child?
Well, as a young child, I was very poor. I was most of the kids growing up in Davis. There weren't that many of us. It was a small town, much smaller then. I had 3 sisters. I was not necessarily a happy person because we were so poor. We never went anywhere. We lived at the end of town. I didn't even have a bicycle. I remember one time I had a girlfriend who had 2 bicycles, or a girl at school. And so she was going to sell one bicycle for $5. So I told my parents.
$5.
I know. That's the way it was. And my dad said, well, maybe we could buy it, but you'll have to let everybody, it has to belong to all of you, not just you. And I said no. I wanted it to be mine. And my parents wouldn't buy it. I guess that should have taught me a lesson of some kind, but that's the way I felt about it. I wanted something for myself. And so I don't know if that's good or bad, but that's the way it ended up.
It's just a lesson to
And
be
so
learned.
then, to make that story even worse, when I was 18 years old and had a job with motor vehicles, one of my first checks, I bought a bicycle for myself. And you know what? It was too late then. I didn't even want it anymore. And there I was with this bicycle that I didn't want because I didn't have any use for it. Isn't that something? That should have taught me something.
That's interesting.
It's very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the way it turned out.
What did you think? When was the first thing that you thought was yours when you were growing up? When was it older when you were out of the house, or what did you feel like?
Well, actually, outside of Christmas, Mama, we always got a pair of pajamas for Christmas, and Mom, I think I got a diary. But growing up, I remember the dog. I got a dog. Yeah, it was a little stray dog that came, and I said it was mine. I always said it was mine, and nobody told me that it wasn't. So I think the dog was mine.
The dog.
I named it Boonyam.
Boonya?
Yeah, I don't know why. I named it Boonyam.
How do you spell that?
Boonyam. Boonyam.
Boonya?
I don't know why, but I named it Boonyam. I've never heard of that. I don't know where I got it.
So
That
you've
was
always loved
yeah.
animals?
Yeah, I have, and animals come to me.
Yeah,
They always come to me.
they do.
Yeah.
Like Snow Bear, he always
Yeah.
comes to you.
And now I have a cat that I love very much, and he comes to me, of course, all the time. So it's nice.
How do you think you've changed as a person or as a woman throughout your life?
Well, I think I've learned to care for others, but at the same time, I don't really put myself. I don't give up a whole lot either. I've traveled a lot all over the world. I have managed somehow to. I'm pretty proud of myself actually because I've managed to take care of people and yet take care of myself too. I don't know.
What is it about traveling that you both love?
We've just always just been used. I've just grown up always traveling. That's just how, I guess, my life's been. Like, I'm always used to saying, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna go to whatever, so and so," and it's just something that we do together. Me, her, Grandma, and then
Usually, sometimes one of your girlfriends goes.
yeah, sometimes I have one of my friends come with me, and
We go to
That's pretty
Newport
fun.
Beach or
yeah, that was fun.
yeah.
I don't know. That's just what I'm used to, I
But
guess.
you know, your mother wouldn't go without you. A lot of parents don't take their children, but your mother would never go without you, which I think is so wonderful.
Yeah.
We have such a good time with you. So people that don't take their children traveling are missing something, I think.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share with each other?
Well,
Do you have any questions for me? You can look
not
at
really, honey. I don't.
this.
I,
If you want to look at that.
how would you like to be remembered
Uh,
at your young age?
I know. Just remembered as.
Well, here's another question, now, because how could you answer that? Is there something about me that you've always wanted to know but you've never asked?
I feel like I know you pretty
You
well.
should,
like
yeah.
what you said.
I know. So, honey, I think that we know each other quite well, and we get
I think
along
we
very
do.
well. So we've been through a lot together.
We have.
Yeah, and it's been wonderful.
And I don't know a lot of people that like have their grandmas living just 2 miles away from their house.
I know. Yes,
Yeah.
pretty nice.
Okay.